Hello and welcome to Isla and Friends. This is a space where we slow down conversations that matter and center real stories, real growth, and real people. I am your host, Islamia Sodekadejo. You call me the radio girl. Today's conversation is for anyone who has been feeling pressured to grow fast, to do more, and be everything all at once. My guest today is Aline Virginie, a broadcaster, a storyteller, and founder and host of Growing One Step at a Time. Aline is someone who reminds us that growth doesn't have to be loud or rushed, it just have to be meaningful. Before stepping fully into broadcasting, Aline built a strong career in operations and process management, working on performance and inclusion. Today, she brings to table strategic thinking into creative work, creating thoughtful spaces, and encouraging personal and professional growth. She's a mom, she's a wife, and a woman deeply grounded in purpose. And today on this episode, we are talking about slow growth. That is why I said we slow down conversations. We talk about slow growth. How important is it, or is it even ideal? We talk about career transition, burnout. We all experience that once in a while. Inclusion and what really means to take the next step without losing yourself. So get comfortable. This is La and Friends, and I am sitting with my friend today, Aline Virginie. Good day, Aline. How are you?
Hi, good day, and thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure. Happy New Year to everybody. And as you heard, my name is Aline, and I'm really happy to have this amazing time with you as Islamaya. So, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you so much. Delighted to have you on the show today.
Mm.
Aline, what's for listeners meeting you for the first time? How do you introduce yourself? How do you describe what you do beyond all the big titles?
Wow, I like the expression, the big title. It's something that I've always didn't like when people talk about big title. I just can't stand it. Now, how do I introduce myself? I see myself as a mother. At first, I'm a born again Christian, so I identify myself with my religion a little bit more so in this time of my life because identity evolved with time. And then I am a mother, which is a daughter, a wife, and pretty much other than that, that's who I am really, the core value of who I am. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aline. Growing one step at a time is kind of gentle, not common, but I see it as also very powerful and for an idea. Why not just growth or growing, or why growing one step at a time for a YouTube broadcast, for a growth podcast, and for your activism and what you do, the philosophy you are throwing out there to support people. Where did that
Yeah.
philosophy come from?
So first, I the idea came from the fact that I very fascinated about people's success. So people who are friends with me knows that I'm very encouraging. I love people. I love my friends thriving, right? But it became obvious that we live in an era where we are just so much into the fast pace of growing and the appearance and everything, right? And as my own experience taught me, is every step that allows you to grow everywhere at the pace that you are allowed to grow, right? And also after COVID, I noticed that there was a really high level of mental health growing with people. And the level of mental health was the fact that people lost that sense of identity. I was something because I was successful. I was something, and then it made me think a lot about the step of growing. Right, it's like the process of seeding. You see, when you plant a seed on the ground, it takes the season and the time that it takes to grow, and that's where when I wanted to start my journey in broadcasting, I wanted to have conversation where people actually talk about the step of growing. So a step of growing that becomes that big picture that we are today. Yeah.
Okay, so what does growth mean to you from that your explanation of growing one step at a time?
I think growth means that you know where you were before. Okay, so it's not what society sees as growth. All right,
It
so
doesn't
it's
have to
your
be, you have to be this at 18. Definitely you have to be this at
no
30, this at 40. No,
growth is personal. Growth
growth
is
is
your
possible.
own personal step. So you have your vision of what you want to be or what you want to achieve, a specific like a project or even your children and everything. So if you're not where you were yesterday, you have taken a step further. And for
For,
me, that's the principle of growing. And I think that it comes also from the fact that we need to make sure that we know that when we are growing, we actually um, we don't compare with other people. We compare only to learn, but not to be something else without it. Because your stages in life is your own stage. So you need to identify what the next step is for you, and that's when you identify that you have grown. Right. So that's where I identify growth is a personal thing.
yeah, I really agree with you on that because
Yeah.
the moment you are looking at, there are lots of people around us, and if
Yeah.
I have to start looking at everybody around me, it means you are just going to be jumping every day, like because people are busy, people are growing, and if you want to be like this, and that person, that means you are not even resting. I'm talking about your growth, your own growth now. How have how did you evolve from working in corporate operations to becoming a broadcaster? You now have your own YouTube channel and you're using true storytelling as a true tool to do that.
Yeah. Now, before we go to that question, there's something you said before when you mentioned about that we want to be compared with people, we want to try to be like other people and everything. Now,
Yeah.
it's not something that is unusual. It's actually um, induced into all of people. Like to see a lot of competition shows are becoming huge because we always have innate us the that self identity that we bring by looking at other people's success and say, I need to emulate that or I want to be this way, right? So it's actually induced into people, even from home as well, and then also politically. And that's the reason why you see people still has to force themselves to look in within themselves and assess their own life and say, this is how my life is going. And it takes a lot of courage because there's peer pressure, right?
Mm.
So that's what I wanted to say. Now, to come back to my journey, it's really interesting. So, as you see at the beginning, I say I'm identify myself as a mother first, and obviously when I migrated in Ireland, I obviously had to find myself doing a job that was allowing me to look after my family. All right, as a parent, right? You have to. We left Africa. We have to work, and I was brought up in with from parents who value work. So I wasn't really interested in staying and doing nothing as a mother. And I'm not saying women who stay at home, because at the moment I'm at home, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it's just I personally had to work. All right. And that means that when you change the environment, you have to learn learn new things and new cultural stuff that we have us migrant. It comes to a moment in life, especially us coming from undeveloped countries, that you tend to choose what work at that time. All right. But the broadcasting is something that has always been in me, but I didn't know, right? I didn't know. So you go through life and say, I have to do this, and this is how it's going to go, and I'm going with it. But broadcasting was definitely something that I remember there was once or twice I tried to apply for journalist course, and I never finished because I had to work, and it was very difficult to
Okay.
do education at the same time because I do have a special need child, and it was really tough. But apart from that, I had to decide at some point in my life that this is what I'm actually going to do now. I'm going to focus on raising the kids and supporting my husband as the best that we can, and then figure out. So there was no real plan. It was just going through life. And then lo and behold, as God does things, our company had to go through downsizing. And I was among the thousands of people who were selected to be graciously sent off after 18 years of career. And the funny thing is, when that happened, I still wasn't thinking. So, but one thing happened is that when I decided the best decision I did when I was talking to my coach, because I had a coach, I said to her, I'm going to take a break because I need to think about what I need to do. But unfortunately, even when I decided to take a break, my best friend passed away. So it kind of became really like a reactive, right? Okay, it became obvious that our life can just pass us by, right? And I was like, what did I really wanted to do? And for some reason, I didn't have to look far, right? And I remember even I work in projects. I remember my manager used to say, "You always turn every meeting into a talk show. Like you always ask questions." I just so addicted to find out about what's going on. I'm interested in people's life. I'm people interested in stories. I'm an avid listener of radio. Mostly, I love radio more than TV because I think radio is more authentic. And it's just happened that I said to my husband, "You know what? While I'm on my break, is that okay if I try this?" And he said, yeah. And that was it. I just didn't think. I just went for it. And there was no like, oh, I knew what I wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. It
Like a
just
big
happened that
plan
I,
and all
yeah,
that. Yeah.
no, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't. Yeah.
So, and
So
that was the moment you realized you want to tell stories. You want to at
I
least
knew
from
I
your
want to tell stories because even when I was in Accenture, I was doing mini podcasts already. Apart, company like Accenture, big company, they have what they call plus one. So you have your main role and then you do little activity in the company. And I was leading the African and Caribbean network for Accenture in Ireland for 3 years. And through that, I was so fascinated about talking to managing directors. And I remember always having a good turnout when people were coming to my I would call it events, a talk like it was like a podcast, mini podcast within the company. And it was really successful. And they were lining up. They wanted to have a conversation with me. And I
it's
remember at the
like
time,
it's always been there, but you just didn't really
yes, that's what I'm saying. My case is not a case of I always knew what I wanted to do, but societal and life makes you bury the stuff yourself within. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
then
very
things
well.
happen that if you pause a moment and you ask yourself the question, it will always come out. You will know that you. And the key thing is that I wasn't afraid to take that step as well. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So from your work that stopped, suddenly, and then you took a break, you grieved. But by the time you were coming back, you started the broadcasting using the YouTube channel, and we all know that YouTube is not going to go viral in one day. It's going to be a slow process, if not a very slow one. So how do you stay grounded? Especially when the society is expectation is overnight success. If you are moving from one thing to another, the next thing you are moving to better be better, and more money than where you're coming from. Otherwise, what are you doing? So what keeps you grounded, gives you hope and courage to go into what you do now?
now, that the good thing is that my characters is someone that is already self content in many ways, right? And then my work before Accenture, I was a sales operation process management, and being a process management that teach you to take a time, right? And then one of the bigger part of my role in Accenture was to listen to all the business deals and the bidding that the client team had. And one thing you do when you listen to this call, because you have to support them to prepare their documentation for the leadership, you learn you start learning the process of selling. And the process of selling means that you need to be really aware of yourself and the environment around you. And you also understand that it's not so much about the fast sales. That's what made, for example, Accenture very successful. It's about the process. All right. And I think this is those skills that I learned and I grew by listening to these guys and managing 50 million worth of deal all the time. That it's very important to just uh, understand that overnight success, you need to make sure that everything that is involved in the business deal is prepared well enough. And because I already had that mindset, even also my upbringing, my mom was a very humble person. And I think when I went into the broadcasting, I wasn't even thinking. I only realized what the difficulties and the stress about YouTube after. When I started, I wasn't thinking about the success and everything. I was just so addicted to have an opportunity to share, to do my
Start.
passion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just so interested in the stories, and I am,
Mm.
And I tell you the truth, up to today, I I am more interested in building my ability to tell the stories, my ability to speak to people, because I had to learn new skills as well about broadcasting and all that, and editing, because obviously I didn't want to run down all my savings for paying for editors. It's very expensive. So there's all those things that I had to learn. So I was so consuming to just that thing that I love, that I wasn't really thinking, and I still not thinking about it. I have to tell you the truth. All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Now you want people to view your stories, right? So every time I think more about how do I get people interested in those people's stories? Those people are giving me their life. They're telling me their journey. They're telling me the deepest of things that they probably wouldn't share to anybody, right? And
yeah,
for me, I look at it as a privilege. So every time I'm like, how I want people to hear about Pat's story. I want people to hear about Lola's story, that kind of thing. And that's what is driving me more, right? So I'm
yeah.
not consumed about the success, because my success is defined by the fact that these people have a platform to tell those stories, and
Yeah,
I'm privileged
offering
to
that.
be the person for it.
Yeah,
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
just the
yeah.
passion,
That's
just
really
the
good.
passion. Yeah, just the passion. Yeah,
So looking
yeah.
at that, your journey, how you are handling it. So is there anything you will say the world is losing by not honoring slow, intentional growth? Because when you go on social media, what you see is fast-paced, live, and it's just they make it, especially for young people, they make it
Yeah.
look like it has to be fast, it has to be, you have to get it immediately, you have to meet up with a lot of expectation. Is the world losing anything when we don't slow down, when we are not intentional about our growth, and when we are not, but when we are only bothered about the success and which we want fast, unlike you,
Mm.
that you are taking your time, and success will come anyway, but you are not thinking or dwelling on that.
I think the world has always been that way, but it's more obvious now because social media is like the open door, the heart of the people. Before there was no people could not expose who they were, right? And now you can see the heart of people through social media. Now you can hide in behind your phone and you can just throw it out what you have in your heart there. So I think we always have human beings have always evolved with the desire of success. That's a fact. It was
Mhm.
demonstrated different way because of what was available to be seen. All right. So I don't feel like I used to say that to my children, but then I'm realizing, no, wait a minute. We were always wanted to be successful as well. All right. So, but we just didn't have a platform to expose it. Now, you also need to understand that we have over probably 7 billion people in the world, right? And social media represent only a small percentage of true human beings. So social media, even though it seems like it's a reflection of what life is about, mama, it's not entirely true. And the reason why I say this is because when you start seeing people who are really successful, like the Mr. Beast, whatever, they're doing the simple things, right? They're doing the simple things. And that means that people are still interested in simplicity, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
even though other people are talking about success, da, 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 it's just that it's not as bad as we can imagine it to be, because it looks like it's bigger because it's on social media. That's the first thing I want to say. And the second thing I want to say is because we've always been like that, because we have now a platform to showcase now, the definition of success is what is the messed up problem. It's not so much the desire to want to do well with what your craft you have. It's what definition of success is. And I remember what I said at the beginning is that sense of comparison, that sense of I want to be better than the other person, right? And I'm competing with this person or that person because, and now I have a platform to showcase my competitiveness, right? But the reality is because we need to re-educate ourselves the true meaning of what success is. so people don't feel like a failure, right? Now, the fast pace right now is due to the fact that I think it's political, right? It's consumer based. We need to create things, people need to consume them. We need to pressurize people to consume, whether the idea, whether the products, whatever. So we need to make sure people buy onto what we are bringing out. And that's more like at the top, the government who create, because attitudes reflect leadership, right? We didn't know about certain things until we induced to receive and do those things, right? And that's why the definition of success needs to be people need to take back control in what they understand by success, right? And for me, I think that's my core um, issue that I see online, where there's a lot of lies um, because of make believes, but you can see through the lie. People are smart. Human beings are very smart. They can see through the lies, right? Because I've seen a lot of friends before when Facebook was rising that they were doing things on Facebook, and if you have to look at just their Facebook, you would think they're just. But then when you sit with them, you realize that it's a different word from what they're saying, and they
On
tell you about
Facebook.
the problem. Exactly, right? So really the reality is there, right? The reality is there, but it's just to make re-education and say success online is not what is success. Success for me is health, is good relationship, is the ability to progress, to live your life and accept it the way you are. You are successful that way. And I
Yeah.
mean, if you make more money, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I think this is what true success is, because you've seen people who have a lot of money but still go in and commit suicide and do a lot of crazy things, right? So I think the fast pace right now is what I can say is that people just, our children, it's our responsibility to teach the youth to redefine what true success is, all right? Because a child can, I've seen the fast pace that a child can misconstrue the success and still be depressed after they got the good job. I
Mm.
remember a joke. I think my children won't mind me saying that. Uh, my children, like quite in their own words, successful. They have good job. They finish university, and my daughter, in the height of her work, and she works for one of the top company in the world, and even my son, and they said to me, "I think all this was a scam," and I laughed because I realized that they thought their success and their self of identity would be a job. But they did, and then they start working and they realize that, why am I feeling so stressed still? Why am I not feeling any better?
So that
Right?
it's
And then they
just it's
realize
just
that it was just a
not-
scam. And I start
yeah,
laughing at it.
yeah. You
Yeah.
actually
It's
answered my
yeah.
next question. I
So
was
well,
going to
this is
ask
pretty much
what
it.
I was going to ask you what success means to you, and I think you answered that. So I want us to move on to
Oh, thank you.
transition from your career to what you do now. And at this point, I want to talk about people who feel stuck in their careers, even though the career no longer fits. Just like what you just mentioned, that for some people, even they are still in the career, but the fulfillment is no longer there, or they feel fulfilled, but when they're out there, it doesn't mean that fulfillment fills up everything within them. For you, when
Mm,
your career stopped, you move on to something else, and that is what you do now. What gave you that push to actually move forward onto the next thing? Because another people or many of your colleagues in your former place of work will be just we just have to within the next thing is to dust their CV, edit it and update it and just go on to the next corporate job,
mm.
even for higher pay. What
Yeah.
gave you that push to something else?
Yeah. So I need to bring a point that we don't always have the luxury to do what we want to do. That's the first thing we need to accept first, right? So most of my adult life up to now, I did what I need to do, but not what I wanted to do, right? And so there are two type of people. There are people who really know what they want to do, but choose to do something else just to fit a purpose. And there are people who do things because the environment and societal situation make them do this. For example, I see, for example, someone who decide to be working in social care, for example. I've seen people who are well gifted into accounting but decide to work for social care, not because they can't do accounting. It's just because situation and life makes them do what they want to do. So I fell into that category, right? So that's something I need to acknowledge first. And then the other thing I would say is that one of the things that happen is that people don't take time enough to pause even while they're working and to look within, right? A lot of time we have to have a moment, and I think this is something I didn't have a lot because I was so busy trying to make things happen for my family that they found the time a lot to say, okay, what do I really, who am I, right? And I think we need to train our children and even train ourselves to always ask that question and then accept what you see about yourself. All right. Because that would then help you when you make a move to something else. Right. And also the fear of what is everybody going to think and get rival. So the thing I say is that the push, you don't have to have a big plan or have everything in place. I didn't have anything in place. I just knew when the trigger was my friend, my best friend passing away. I have to be honest. It doesn't have to be something as bad as losing someone. It can be sometime a moment where you just pause and say, I feel a bit overwhelmed right now. This work is overwhelming. This environment is overwhelming. Who am I? What do I really want to do? And now, when you see it at the back, because what we always, who are we really comes out naturally. You don't need to ask people all the time. People know. So people, you will hear, I want to be a cook. And the person say, how does cook is going to look to my family? I'm cooking food, right? There's a lot of things that comes into this situation. So my
Societal
push,
expectation.
yeah, yeah, and my push was mostly when my friend passed away, it became obvious she's around my age group, and it became obvious that life can just pass you by, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I start instead of because my when I took a break for my career, I was planning to go back, right? But then while I was at the end of my break. It was 3 months that I planned, and when she passed away, I was so traumatized because she wasn't sick, nothing happened, and it just happened suddenly. And while I was grieving, and I kept saying, all I can think about is that life. I remember all the conversation we have, the plans we had. I was like, life can just pass you away, and you don't have the power to stop when your end of day comes. That's a fact. All right. And I say, wait a minute, maybe I should just do what I really like. And it didn't take me 2 minutes to find out this is what is in me.
What's
And I
why?
just went for it.
Yeah.
So some people are stuck in a job where they have to pay bills, but when they find out, for example, they like sewing, you can take 2 or 3 hours a week to do your
Still
passion.
do what you really love to
Yes,
do. Yeah, yeah.
it might not because people associate their passion with money, and that's when we need to make sure we dissociate it. If your passion gives you money, eventually that's fine, but your passion needs to be your passion, and the means to get the money to finance your passion or finance your environment, it needs to be something different,
Something
right?
different.
Yeah, because that's why people get stuck, right? They don't want to do things because they feel like, is it going to make me money? Look, let me tell you something. This broadcasting thing, YouTube doesn't make money at all. There's a lot of lies about, oh, it's a boom for 2 minutes. No, if you want to make an income out of it, it's a lie, right? It will take a time, will take a lot of hard work. It take a long time. So if you came in for the money, you are going to be frustrated. All right. But I think like every passion, it needs you to just leverage 2 hours a week to cultivate your passion. No matter, even
Nurture
if you're
it,
working,
dedicate
even if
time to
you're cleaning, yeah, even if you're doing that passion you want, just give that time, intentional about giving that time to your passion. And that's when you see that people get stuck because they are overthinking about what the environment going to say. Like, let me tell you something. I started this thing. I don't think my family understood. Up to today, my sisters have never said a word to me about my thing. Even my husband never understood what I was doing. My children, only my daughter understood what I was doing. And I'm being candid. And if I was thinking about the approval, I would have stopped.
you will not do what you're
My,
doing.
I have
Yeah.
another best friend who I thought she would be the best supporter because I've always support her. She's never said a word. Sometimes she doesn't even watch my videos, right? So that's that, and I don't blame them. And it's not that they're bad, but it's just that you need to get to a stage where you're so passionate about what you do that The outside world doesn't matter.
You do it
And
for you.
you do it for you. And
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
the transition for me, I feel the transition for me is so consistent because I was not determined to use my time to do what I love, right? It's a
Which is very
determination and forgetting about the voice of everybody outside. And then let me tell you something. The one closest to you will always make fun to you more than the people outside. I have more encouragement from people outside than my own people. And it
yeah.
doesn't mean that my own people are bad, but it just means that
It is what it is.
it is what it is. You understand
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say? And I think
Yeah.
that's what blocks people a lot of time. They don't want to take that step because they worry, okay, are they going to think I'm crazy? Why am I doing this and that? No matter what you are into, you know? Not
Mm-hmm.
everything that we're passionate about look fancy, you
Yeah,
know?
and so
So yeah.
thank you so much, Aline, for that. So you don't necessarily need to wait for a big push or
No,
tragedy, or you just have
one
to
step,
push yourself and identify. Once you know who you are, you
yeah.
are good to
And
go. You
accept it.
mentioned taking a step without, you don't need a full plan to
You
take
know,
it, to take a
you
step.
know.
For someone that is listening now and that want to take a step and they don't have it all figured out, so
Yeah.
what kind of maybe short advice do you want to give to that person?
So I did not have any clue about, I've never done a training in broadcasting. I'm naturally born broadcaster, I think. I've never done any training. I know I can speak. I've never done any training about editing. I didn't even know because I work for a top company in the world where everything we did in the company, we had a specific broadcasting doing for that. So I had no concept of how the light and everything you're doing is going to affect the what people are saying. I just knew I wanted to tell stories, right? And but I didn't think so much about it. I learned as I go along. So I realized when I put my first video, I said, oh, that looks a bit off. Should I take it down? No, I'm not going to take it down because I want a reminder of how the next video is going to be better.
That's my starting point there.
Yeah. So I went and I went, my experience, I went and I started doing it as like, okay, I'm doing the interview, but it became obvious that, okay, you're doing the interview, the way you put the camera was off, the person was way too up there, the stuff at the back. There was a lot of things that happened, but I kept going. And that's the thing. And I think sometimes when people are really passionate and they have accepted what they like, what they are, they don't always think too much about those things. They think about improvement more so than
Mm,
how does it look like. They're very, and then be comfortable with the mistakes and don't
mm,
worry if people sees those mistakes, right? Be comfortable because I think one thing I've learned is that failure makes you powerful. We are trained
mm,
to not fail, to look good, to look special, to look whatever. No, it's a lie. Real successful people will tell you that I've seen that even in my company when we work for Accenture, when we do a business day and we lose, the team will sit down and make a very strong competitive strategy to find out why they lost the deal. There will be a win and loss strategy. That's what I was doing. We sit down with the team and we prepare the document for them. And and that's what makes company like that more powerful because they understood that it's not losing the deal and the client that makes them look bad, but it's what they need to learn from it, right? And for me, I think that I can see, I had a meeting yesterday about making my channel look a little bit nicer. And I can see that when I look my first video to now, I was like, it's a progress. I had to learn, right? Go with the idea of learning and
mm,
nurturing the passion.
mm.
Very powerful. It makes you feel so good, right? Like
Yeah.
every time, and don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid at all. I tell you one thing, people wants to make fun of you when you look bad, but just enjoy until the top. Like when you listen to the story of Tom Ford, even the likes of Bill Gates, they had failure situations.
Yeah.
They have. Yeah. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aline. Let's move on to inclusion because you did something to improve inclusion and belonging in your former workplace. What does
Yes.
really inclusion look like to you beyond there are so many policies on papers, but then a lot of communities still feel not included, marginalized in Ireland today. What does real inclusion look like for you?
I'm going to be very controversial now, right? So, inclusion is just a policy and politic thing, all right? And then the whole concept of even inclusion itself is very demeaning. That's what I've learned. I led the African and Caribbean network of Accenture for 3 years. I was the person who started it in Ireland. It was already happening in the UK for a long time, but then I launched it in Ireland. And it became obvious to me that you can't be naive when you approach inclusion. You can't. So when people have already made up their mind that they don't want to accept you, trying to push the narrative of them accepting you is already a lost cause, because the heart of people needs to change. But I think the concept of inclusion needs to be more about you might not like me, but you have to respect me as a human being. All right. If we, the minority, approach that way, we are not going to seek the validation in the wrong places. And I think when I start doing that, I didn't realize I was like that until I kept hitting brick wall. When every time I said we need to do this, I go to the leadership, and we need to do that. And then, but when I asked if we could do stuff like fun stuff, they were okay with it. But things that were making them uncomfortable, it was a problem. All right. And why? Because nobody wants to be exposed that they're not doing something right, or they are being purposely mean or undermining to another race or another group of people. All right. And then also, you need to understand that a lot of these things are politically driven, and most people don't even know why they are racist in the first place. A
Mm.
lot of people don't know why. I've asked many people, you look at me as a Black person, you look at me as different, and when you see me, you're angry. Do you even know why it's happening? But they just know that they were told that stay away from this group and that group because they this. But then and I found that over my years in Europe that a lot of friends that um, are white, are friends with me, like I'm like a dirty secret. They really enjoy my company, but yet they can't expose it. You see that even in the church, they can't expose the love they have for you outside because they have to now explain to everybody why you with this Black person, right? So
Mm.
when I understood that, it made me approach inclusion differently. Now, validation is not the way to go, but respect is what. I'm a human being. You're going to give me the respect as a human being. That's all I want from you. I don't want you to love me. If you don't want to love me, that's fine by you. You're going to make that decision to love me on your own. I'm not going to do everything, but I'm going to, what is right at me as the human right has stated, and as the dignity of a human person, that's what I'm seeking for. And that's the where inclusion, for me, inclusion became really more powerful when I understood that, you know what, I don't want to be accepted, but I want to be respected.
Respected. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that. And
Yeah.
they're talking about media and storytelling, and still about marginalized voices, marginalized community, whose voices are still missing now in media, whose stories are we still not telling strongly enough or loud enough.
I think it's the disabled, believe
Oh,
it or not. I think someone expect me to say the Black and the minority now. People with disability are all over the world, in fairness, right? And not there's not enough story about people who will go through disability and the elderly as well. There's not enough respect for the elderly in this part of the world. All right, so mostly, and then it's even become the same in Africa. You see, people are very disrespectful to elderly. People forget that we are going to grow old, and the stories need to be told. Because there's a lot of vast level of wisdom of someone who's lived a long time, and there's a lot of things to learn from someone who have disability, who can't um, function the way we function, and but still able to tell their story, right? There's a lot, because imagine living in the world, for example, where you don't have legs, or when you can't speak. There are things that you have to learn that the likes of you and me can't, even no book can teach us. And I
mm,
think stories like that needs to be
to be
these are the
told.
number one thing. Yeah. Now, and that's what I noticed. And I think positive stories need to be told as well. And that's why I'm so adamant about telling success stories and positive stories and growth stories, because there's a lot of negativity. A story exciting when it's dramatic, when it's wow, there's a drama, just on the who killed this and who that. That's why you see the news is predominantly negative because it's
Yeah.
induced. Yeah. So I think positive stories need to be told. And then we Black people need to tell our story, but the way we need to tell our story is not for people to validate us, but it's for us to tell the story because we are amazing cultures. African have, let's face it, the African have amazing culture before it became materialistic, before it became about money and whatever, big cars. And I'm like most, I cringe every time I go to African meetings and it's all about status. I cringe every time I see that. I get very nervous. I'm like, that's not what we are. We are beyond the status. We are beyond that. We have vast, the Bantus have vast cultural things to tell. And we can tell the stories. But I do get a lot of struggle, and I'm sure you get that struggle as well as a broadcaster, that people only want to come in to tell the success. They want to come and tell, I'm this name and I'm this
The good
person,
parts.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
don't want to tell how rich our culture is. Our culture was amazing. I mean, like before it got messed up with the capitalism and all that, we had amazing stories. I remember growing up, my grandmother used to tell us amazing stories. Like,
Amazing stories. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
well,
we can create a platform for that, right?
yeah.
So
Maybe
yeah,
not a lot of grandmas are telling stories anymore, but then we have YouTube and a platform like radio as well,
mm,
telling authentic stories. How can we use
yeah,
platforms like YouTube and radio to actually give voice to the people living with disability, people who have positive stories to tell, like you mentioned, and then to also tell stories, authentic cultural story as well from
yeah.
migrant community.
Yeah, people want to hear them. Let me tell you something.
How can we use the YouTube and the radio platform to tell those stories for
Just
the people you mentioned? How can the platform YouTube and radio help those people?
well, the YouTube doesn't help you. You help yourself. That's the good thing. The powerful tool. That's what YouTube is such a powerful tool because they allow you to come in and tell your story, right? So YouTube, you take your camera like I did. I started my thing with my iPhone. It was so funny, and I started a talk. So that's the advantage with YouTube compared to maybe radios where it has to be policies, blah blah. YouTube allows you to come and tell your story. So you can go there, take your phone. Now you don't need to have big cameras like the one that I bought. You just I started with a phone. Put yourself, if you have a story to tell, tell. Now, the main thing as well is that you also need to have people host. Because not everybody is easy on camera. You need to also have hosts like us who can enable that. I'm very strict about who comes on my channel. I don't want people who come and boast about themselves. I want people who tell authentic stories about how they success, how the vulnerability of their success, and also how it can empower people, right? So you need to have more and more people who have, because I listen to a lot, I do a lot of study on podcasting at the moment, and I see a lot of stuff, and I'm like, I seriously, how does this add value to someone's life? This story and that. There's a lot of that, and so I believe that we need to have people who are willing to open the door for those people to come in and tell
To
their stories as well.
tell
Yeah,
their stories.
and I'm
Thank you
willing.
so
I'm
much.
willing. I'm
Yeah.
willing. I'm willing for that.
Now let's talk about balancing roles now as a little bit about away from career and broadcasting. Let's talk about yourself as a mother and how
Yeah,
has your being a mom and a wife shaped your understanding of purpose and growth? Because many African homes, for us, for our age group growing up, the parents want you to be doctors, to be lawyers, to be accountant, to be an engineer, because they believe those are the four professions that are highly paid and all that. But then
mm,
now, even us as migrants now, I know we are telling our children also to be well educated, to be focused. But then on this show today, you've told us about slow growth, pursuing your vision, and success will come later. You don't need to chase money. How is, can you align this together as a mom and a wife?
I don't think people should not chase money, but I think money should not be the primary goal of your craft.
Priority. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong. We want to be successful financially. And in fairness, I think it's nice, it's rewarding. But I think also people should also remember that it's the how long you're successful that matter, right? Because you can get something faster now, but you won't be able to sustain it because you
Sustaining.
haven't built the character to sustain the because when you get more money, it's more responsibility. That's one thing I want to say. But as a parent, I love being a mother. I didn't want to be a mother growing up. I actually didn't even want to get married growing up. I wasn't dreaming about it like some women, I want to be married or anything. And but God has his ways. So and I one thing is that for a long time and until today, my success is to see my children be level-headed, growing, be level-headed, and be more self-aware of themselves, right? And that's the way I raise my children, and that's the way I raise. I felt good about myself when I see my children being self-aware of themselves, right?
Mm, mm,
Now, I did have an unconventional home. I have two boys. My eldest one is a special need, and that he taught me a lot more about. I think he's probably one of the reasons why I'm more chill. Because when you have a child who have autism, you can't just be. You never know what's going to happen the next day, right?
mm.
Autistic children, and he's a very low function autistic child and very dependent. And so that has made my parenting different. I was fortunate to have it because that made me realize that every human being has their own journey. I'm
Mm.
a guardian. I'm your parent, but I'm just assigned to guide you through your journey, right? And that's the way I raise. And my husband and I feel that's the way our children. We are just there to guide them through their journey. And
Okay.
why I say this because I saw how things changed for my mom in her career at some point in my life. And I realized that life can change, right? She
Mm,
lost a job and it changed a bit of her life. We had to move back to the home country, the rural area where I grew up in the city. And that taught me that a job can change. Your identity is not a job. Like right now, I haven't had a job for 12 months now. In fairness, it's because I don't want to, but let's say for argument's sake, I was still Accenture. Accenture did not let us go. I'll still be working. But then it changed because they decide to change and people's life change. So work changed.
mm,
So then it taught me straight away from a young age that because these are not things that can last for a long time, let people be themselves. But my son, one of my twin, the other twin, he wanted to be a professional dancer. And I say, you want to be a professional dancer, but just be the best at it. So that's what you like. He went to university, he went to UL, he did performing art. And the funny thing is that he's not even doing that today. He's actually a project manager, but I allow him to do that. And I remember having questions from my sisters, my mom, oh my God, dance is what? How is he going to earn money? I said, that's what he want to do. I don't care what anybody say. And I used to see the smirk of some of my friends. They say, oh, so he's doing, I don't understand what's going on. I say, that's what my son want to do. And I was very determined to let him be who he wanted to do. And I eventually he changed his career himself. He went back and did a international project management course, and he did whatever. So I think what I'm trying to say is that I was fortunate to have had the challenges that my mom faced, and
yeah.
that made me think. And also raising a special need kids, that made me realize that you can't control your environment, right? But you
Yeah.
can. And then I had to now sit down and decide,
Money.
what am I as a parent? You're just a guardian. You're not the owner of the human being. You're a
Just to
guardian.
guide them through the right path.
Yes, because you and I today, our parents are not here with us.
Yeah.
We are living our life now, so we can't control our children.
Yeah.
So that's where I went into the way I raise, and I
Okay.
see,
That's
yeah.
very well. And then, since talking about family life, do you think women have enough opportunity to grow alongside family man, alongside family, and also alongside men?
It depends of the culture. I think this side of the world is a little bit opportunity more. You and I know there's more opportunity in this side of the world for women, right? So women can work. and it's kind of even expected for women to work in this
Mhm.
part of the world. But let's talk as African, because we are African in fairness. I know we live in Ireland. In Africa, I think this opportunity to be successful depend on the men's self security. If a man is insecure, it does affect the growth of his wife. That's a fact, right? So there are men who just find very difficult to see you be successful, no matter how kind or submissive you are. They still have
Mm.
that, and that comes down to what I say, that societal. My friends are going to say my wife is this, oh my god, this, that's a cultural thing. It depends on the person, the men you have, and that's why I don't want to make it general, because you see some men, they're quite happy to
Different
see.
from one woman
Yeah, it's
to
different.
another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the opportunity for women to grow also is also depending on the economical situation of the environment they are in. Like, for example, here women are more can get more, can go to a job interview against a man and get the job, where back in some part of the world, obviously, priority will be given to men, right? Because
Mm,
they
mm,
see men
mm,
as the provider,
mm.
and women are not given more chance. And also this fact that there's not a lot of work as well, right? So
That's
it
another
depends on
challenge.
the
Yeah.
cultural environment. Yeah, it depends.
Mm.
But I
I
think
agree with you.
we are fortunate in Ireland. I have to be honest. We are
Yeah.
fortunate in Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was sitting with a friend on an episode of Islam Friends, and just to buttress what you said, that is actually different from one woman and one family to another.
Mm,
She grew up in a family where her dad actually treated her like he treated the boys in the family, and the boys just like the way she was treated, as
yeah.
like a, they were all treated equally, and they had different. They have the same opportunity, equal opportunities. The skills, the training, the how to
Mm,
defend themselves, the how to go pursue career, study,
yeah,
cook, and everything. So and I think, yeah, I agree with you on that. For
yeah,
some women who have at one point or another, they may have to pause their career, they may have to postpone it, they may have to refocus, maybe because they move from one country to another, or
yeah.
because of marriage, they want to start family, because of migration, a lot of reasons. What would be your advice for women like that, who feel that their dreams or vision are on pause, but they are still willing to forge ahead to move forward?
What are you sacrificing against, right? So we all have to make sacrifice at some point in life, and you have to choose what is important, right? And I feel personally, for me, my sacrifice was I needed to make sure that my children have a start in life, and that I manage my special needs. So uh, I didn't go back to school and do the big degree everybody's doing. I didn't. I just did a lot of diploma all along the way, because I felt like if I overload myself with one side, I will give another side will suffer, right? So I think, like I said to you, let me tell you something. A lot of issues that we're facing is because we think a lot about what society would think, right?
Mm,
Because you have your own family and you know what is important. If you pause for your children, it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Who cares if you're home? If your husband can afford to maintain the like, if you and the husband decide, okay, one person stays at home so that we can survive with one income, that's your family decision. That's you. So you pause, but then it's not like you're losing yourself because you didn't go back to work. I think what women get scared a lot is that some men do take advantage of that. You start being men be very being abusive because the women don't have means to
mm,
support themselves, and they don't look after their wife, and and that fears makes a lot of women feel like, if I'm not working, he's going to treat me like trap. And trust me, it's happening quite a lot. And it's not just African, it's mostly in general, right? And that's why women want to have their financial independence, because so I think it depends on the relationship you're into. I think I feel the relationship you're into would help make that sense of sacrifice worth it, right? So
all
if
right.
you're in a partnership, you guys agree, women 2 years, 3 years, right? And in the meantime, by the time the child turned three, let's say you just gave birth, by the time the child turned three,
Do
you
whatever
invest.
works for you and your family.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You can do little things there and there to occupy yourself while the child is asleep or when the child is at the crash, didn't have that. And but it has to be a joyful decision, right? And but some people are forced to be on the situation. but you always have to identify, okay, what is the cost here and why, and what's the benefits here. All right. And for I
Thank
think
you.
the pressure of the social environment is a factor into how people so much want to do too much. All right.
Mm,
I spent 12 months without working and I just didn't care what people think because I
yeah,
know I'm a hard worker. So I don't think people would like I look, you know what I'm trying to say? I think it's more like when you I want to encourage women to be powerfully confident about their decision, even if it's a decision that looks weird to everybody.
absolutely. We are
Yes.
moving fast to the end of the program now. You
Yeah.
are still on Isla and Friends, and I'm sitting with Aline Virginie. And
Yeah.
my final set of two questions will be, I want you to encourage our listeners today, particularly a woman that is listening right now. What is that one small step that you want to encourage her to take this week?
Be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. And I want you
Be
to
kind to
finish this
yourself.
sentence. Growth begins
Growth begins when you have done better than last time.
when you are doing better than last time. Thank you so much. Where can people connect with you and follow what you do on social media?
So I have an Instagram page called the Growing Seed One Step at a Time. I have my YouTube page. It's called the Growing Seed One Step at a Time, and I also on TikTok, and I'm also on Facebook. All right, and
Everywhere.
obviously, and but I also have my LinkedIn page, Aline Menjadeu. You can connect with me through Aline Menjadeu. You can send me DM on Instagram. Mostly, I think most people of my age group use Instagram. And obviously, I have an email as well on my platform, so you can check on my email there, and they can contact you as well to get my number if they want. I
Sure,
don't mind.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much, Alain. It's been a pleasure,
It was
listening
a
to you,
fantastic.
learning from you, having this conversation with you today.
Yeah,
And thanks for your honest answers and, really powerful conversation it's been. And for reminding us that growth doesn't have to be rushed. Success is
no,
how you define it. It is
yeah,
shouldn't be any by societal standard. And taking
yeah,
one step at a time is still a progress, and it is absolutely fine.
yeah.
Dear
It's
listener,
fine.
if today's episode resonates with you, I hope you give yourself a permission to pause and to trust your
Mhm.
own journey. Whether you are
Yeah,
navigating change right now, whether you are redefining success, or you are simply trying to grow at your own or at your own pace, that is still
yeah.
fine. You can connect
Mm.
with Align and I walk through growing one step at a time on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, like she has mentioned, and on Facebook as well. And I'll be sharing our details when on our on GoCom Radio social media as well if you want to reach
Okay.
out. As always,
Uh,
thank you for listening. And I will always say, love yourself, believe in yourself, take good care of yourself, pamper yourself, take yourself seriously. Never accept anyone's definition of you. Forgive yourself if you have to,
mm,
and keep yourself safe. And always remember to smile. Smile is therapy, smile is charity, and smile is love. Till another
yeah.
time, for myself, Islamia Solikadejo, you call me the radio girl, and Aline Virginie, we are saying goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for having me. It was a good conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow.